Have you been taught that the spiritual world is safe, that everything that comes through is love and light, that all you need to do is open your heart and receive? Most healers and spiritual practitioners operate from this belief. It feels true, it feels aligned, it feels like the foundation of everything they do. But the love and light paradigm is the most dangerous belief structure a healer can hold, because it leaves the door wide open and darkness knows exactly how to walk through it dressed as light. I'm Tracey Gillies, and I've spent the last decade commanding and releasing demonic and multidimensional entity interference at the highest levels. I literally wrote the book on it. In this episode, I'm walking you through the spiritual fraud of love and light, and why accepting everything that comes through without discernment is the biggest attachment mechanism there is, and what it actually means to work safely in the spiritual. The spiritual is filled with a vast amount of information. It is almost like a sea of beings, a sea of possibilities, infinite potential. Yes, we are multidimensional beings, spiritual beings having this kind of human experience, but when people hold that belief that the spiritual is all love and light, it is not. It is a vast ocean of information. Light exists just as much as darkness exists. And people will also hold that naive viewpoint that light always wins. It doesn't. There is levels to light and dark. And if you have a light frequency that is here, but a higher, powerful dark frequency or being, this is powerful, this is more powerful, and this will win every time, or be able to supersede the light frequency. What people don't understand is that there is so many sub-variations with frequency and energy, and they'll often talk about light or source. And so when I ask them, hey, what are you doing? And they will talk about spiritual healing and re-regulation, and they'll say they're just channeling source energy. Oh, it would be wonderful if it was as simple as that. It is not. It is not. Maybe the analogy that I will use is that, yes, at the highest levels of being, there is like this one source, this highest frequency, but I like to think of it like almost like the sun. It is so powerful. You can't really touch it. It would take you so much, almost like up-leveling and building spiritual authority and this really high path progression to be able to work with those levels of frequency. And then there's all these offshoots. So there are so many variations to light frequency, just as there is so many different variations of dark energetics. And when people hold this viewpoint that the spiritual is all safe and they just open themselves up to these worlds of energy, honestly, it's catastrophic. It breaks my heart for people because they don't understand and why we are here. We are almost like this, having this human experience, right? And we're here to co-create with divinity, even though, it is part of who we are at our highest reordering levels. But we have to direct our consciousness favorably. And so without understanding the spectrum of frequency, of energies, of light frequency and of dark energetics, you're not really understanding the whole picture. And discernment is key. So if I just opened myself up to the spiritual realms and said, I'll accept everything as divinity reordering, I will accept everything as higher alignments and guidance. With entity interference, you need an attachment mechanism for something to be able to create a deregulation or an attachment point. And it can be an agreement. So an agreement could be saying yes to it. And I see this endlessly. People, going along and they're doing, I don't know, so many healers doing activations for people. And when I say, what are you doing? What energies are you kind of engaging with? What are you activating? What multidimensional fields of information? And they say, oh, well, I'm just working with the quantum up-leveling. It is so dangerous. It is like gateways. It is doorways for entity interference to pose as light energetics. And this is what they do. They are masters of disguise, of masquerading, and spiritual fraud is one of the biggest issues that there is. What do I mean by that? Oh my goodness, fraud. If you look at Earth at the moment, how much fraud is there on Earth? What people do not understand is the spiritual realms are the starting place for everything. They hold a template, and the physical simply mirrors the spiritual. So if you can understand consciously how much how much fraud there is on Earth, that is exactly what exists on the spiritual planes of existence. And I just see endless deregulation. I see people searching and searching for, the spiritual up-leveling without having almost like both sides understood. And without that discernment, they'll go into even different healing modalities can be laced with dark interference. Even people, having attunements for even Reiki, I'll use an example. I don't want to paint Reiki with all the same brush, but it really depends on the master trainer or the master, I don't know what it's called in Reiki, however they're getting attuned by. It depends on their energetics. It depends on their connection as to what frequency they are holding, that they are attuning other people to. And entity interference loves to attach to light workers, to healers. Why? Because entity interference siphons people's energetics, claims unclaimed gifts. But if it is attached to a healer, it's called the compromised healer. The dark energy influences are able to attach to more and more people, almost like a network, right? So if other people are working in energetics, they are simply creating more and more transference for other people. I've learned all of this the hard way. If anything that I'm saying resonates and you'd like to know more about all the information about dark energy, dark entity, how they need an attachment mechanism, it is all in my book, The Truth Behind Entity Interference. Honestly, understanding is one of the key pieces of the puzzle. But as I said, I've learnt the hard way. I remember, when I was starting on my journey, wow, I opened up to the spiritual and thought it was amazing. I was just so engrossed. It was just like my eyes opened. And, I just couldn't understand. So what I see all the time is people will come to me and they're sort of going on the spiritual development path and they've opened themselves up to the world of energetics. But as they open up, they start to feel things that are not right. But hey, my teacher's saying that it's all love and light. And so, but I'm experiencing kind of different energies and I can't put words to it, but it doesn't feel like light frequency. It doesn't feel supportive. I see a lot of people going to do, activations and they have these experiences and then it's sold off to them as Kundalini awakening and their body's jerking or almost like taken on its own kind of life force and that they've lost control of themselves. And I'm sorry to say it's not life force energetics. It's not source. It's not an up-leveling. It is generally a sign that entity interference has ended up coming through that pathway. And as I said before, at one point in my journey, I was learning things and I was studying and I would turn up to learn more and more and be in this healing environment with other people. And I would just come away with all of these different types of entity attachments. And I didn't understand what was going on because no one was really talking about it. And it took me years and years of working through my own healing and my own energetics and having all of these different experiences to then understand that the truth was entity interference was involved just as much in the healing progression path and spiritual transformation and all of these things. And I was constantly just picking up more and more deregulation. What I see is people going to do even healing circles. There is so much transference amongst healing circles and spiritual elevation practices because when people are healing, they're dumping their trauma. And then when they dump their trauma, they dump their entities. And then if people have these programs of attachment to pick up more and more, they are simply, again, picking up more and more entity interference. And it just becomes this endless cycle, an endless loop. trying to create elevation and expansion and finding something else in its place. So spiritual fraud is at an all-time high. Even healers that work with that paradigm that it's all love and light, and they might be healing their clients and they're releasing, they might sense, maybe they do, maybe they're sensing some restrictions or entity interference, and they'll say, oh, I'll just put light to it. I'll just show the entity light and I'll get rid of it. Well, it depends on what level of light you're channeling and able to attune to, one. And then it also depends on the entity type. So some real low-level energetics may be released with that. But if you get a high, powerful, sentient, multidimensional being, you're in trouble as a healer if you're not across all the energetics, because you could almost infuriate it. It could almost look like it leaves, but it doesn't, and it can reattach even to the healer themselves. So honestly, the world of energy is vast. There is so much more to it. And even accepting, divinity and guidance and all of these things, I see people all the time starting to lose grip on reality. It's like they've opened up their energetics so wide, or so, to accept all of these energies as directive, and the energy gets compromised more and more and more, but they're almost on overload as well. I see some really sad stories, things like plant medicine, people going to experience the spiritual through these mediums of transformation. And what I'm here to tell you right now, those realms that people travel to, they are not light realms whatsoever. They are full with very, very dangerous entity interferences. And there is a payment for traveling to those realms. It is our consciousness that keeps us safe. So when we split from our consciousness, you better hope that the practitioner, the healer, the shaman, the facilitator has the ability to work directly with entity interference and actually can keep your physical body safe. Otherwise, one, you'll have entity interference be able to attach even at a physical body level. Two, that they can also pave the way for safety through those realms. And I see it all the time. I see people opening up to forces that they have no idea about. And once they open up and say yes, like an agreement, they can have this attachment that then creates this huge deregulation right through their whole entire life, because they didn't understand. And those realms that I just talked about, I liken it to the greatest showman. It's almost like this show, and people go in and go, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm being eaten alive by a huge predator being. I don't know, they're shown awful things because there is transformation through darkness, right? And they say yes to it. And then they're shown something else and they say yes. If you're not able to discern truth from lies and say, no, that's not right, it just paves the way for more and more misalignments through your spiritual templates. And I've seen very, very sad situations. One case, I had a woman that, she had done a lot of transformation. And she had this healer who was now doing ayahuasca ceremony. And I don't know, he had put it off for a while. And she said that the few times after that she'd met him as he was starting to do more and more of ayahuasca, she said he didn't seem like himself. It seemed like he had changed. Yes, undoubtedly, he would have had a lot of interference. But she said the day that she went to look at where she was doing the ceremony, she had this feeling that she just wanted to backtrack, and like it felt like this screaming inside of her, and she just felt like it was her intuition saying, don't do it. And when she relayed to the man, the facilitator, the shaman, he said, oh, they're just the demons screaming, waiting because they don't want to be released. So she went, oh, okay. And through that process, I asked her later on, because she didn't find me for a year later, and by then the deterioration and it was horrific. But I said, what were you doing? Because I know that she was doing a lot with spiritual development. I know she'd made a lot of headway and progression and healing. And what she said was her intention for going into that ceremony was she wanted to feel or have the highest level transformation that was possible. dangerous intention, first off, if you are going to a realm that is not a light realm. To say I want to feel the most powerful transformation, there's no stipulation. What if the most powerful transformation is a dark transformation? And believe me, there is such high multidimensional entity interferences that can create just that and create the hugest deregulation. Transformation is transformation. Transformation is changing DNA coding. Transformation is changing energetic structures. Transformation is just that, and that's exactly what happened. And really sad, really, really sad. She lost her whole connection. Not even Dark Night of the Soul, worse than that, suspended animation. You know, I see people go and again say that they want to feel the most highest energy that's there. Well, watch out if there's a dark energy that's there, and it's the most. Remember at the start I talked about the levels. You've got a light energy, but you've got a high, powerful dark one. This is more powerful. And if you say, I want the most powerful transformation, it's an invitation for this energy. Kundalini, and really it is, wow, dark energetics. Multidimensional activations, not right for everybody. Everybody's energetic signature is different. Everybody's coding, they need to be aligned to their highest multidimensional anchor points, not a sea of information. Heart coherency, don't get me started. These huge groups, huge influences that talk about heart activations, heart coherency, groups that people can even sign up to, and everybody sends each other healing through their heart. You just put your name down and then all these people can then access your energy and send healing. If you open up in those ways to energy, thinking it is all just light energetics, what if all the people engaging with you are fully compromised and have such high entity interference attached to them? Healing and saying yes to it is allowing energy templates to be changed. That is basically what it is. So you are literally saying any being can access my energetic field and change my templates. That would be one of the most dangerous attachment mechanisms that there are, and it would pave the way for more and more anywhere. It's almost like your energy's running all of these programs or all of these codings, and entity interference can see your full spiritual matrices. So if you have any of these programs running in your field, you then simply are going to attract more and more and more entity interference. I could honestly tell story after story after story. Energetics, the spiritual is vast. It is filled with so much beauty. Don't get me wrong. There is ways to up-level. There is ways to have the spiritual activation and, spiritual mentorship or guidance, but when people do not understand spiritual realms and say yes to everything and just open with undiscernment, it is the most dangerous thing that people can do. So I spoke before about my book, Truth Behind Entity Interference, and it offers information across all information to do with the spiritual, but obviously around entity interference. But if you are a healer, a practitioner, facilitator, a light worker, and you're wanting to up-level your skills to be able to work at the highest levels of light, right? The highest levels of re-regulation and healing, you have to be working at the highest levels of dark entity interference, because the two go hand in hand. So if you've liked this episode, please subscribe or follow. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next episode.